Welcome back for another episode of You're Gonna Hate This. Today we're going to take a look at a classic movie that's been delighting children and adults alike for over 40 years. This is a movie you can't help but love, no matter how old you get. A treasure that should never be defiled. And we're here today to do just that. So sit back, relax, and indulge your sweet tooth as we take a look at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. For those minute few who may not know, Willy Wonka tells the story of Charlie Bucket, a poor boy who's one of 5 winners of a contest for the eccentric, secluded candy maker Willy Wonka. The winners and their guardians are taken on a tour of Wonka's fabulous factory as each of them systematically succumbs to a moral flaw, and ultimately it's Charlie who wins the biggest prize of them all, the factory itself. With that, let's take a look at 4 interesting points that could be uncovered in this classic movie. Number 1. Charlie is poor. I know what you're thinking, but I mean dirt poor. It's something that never really occurred to me when I watched it as a child. Sure, you noticed that Charlie never really had any money for buying chocolate, but then again, as a child, I didn't have money of my own either. It's not until I look back on this movie now that I really understand how pitiful their situation really was. When Charlie proclaims,
"I'm fed up with cabbage water. It's not enough,"
he's met with indignation and outrage. Let's think that through. Cabbage water isn't even cabbage soup. Cabbage soup is comprised of various ingredients, the foremost being cabbage. No, cabbage water is just cabbage-flavored water. It harkens back to the Great Depression where people would make soup by just using chicken bones and water until the water picked up the chicken flavor.
So watery, and yet there's a smack of ham to it.
It's hot ham water.
If that's not destitute, I don't know what is. Charlie says he's fed up with cabbage water, which means this isn't the one bad night before payday where you make do with what you have. No, clearly, cabbage water is the staple food of the Bucket family and has been for some time. The family is shocked and overjoyed when Charlie produces a single loaf of bread, so much so that they refer to it as
a real banquet.
Heck, even those starving children in Africa that appear in the commercials get a bowl of rice a day, and here this family is living almost exclusively off of flavored water. Also, Charlie's house can best be described as a decrepit shanty, with the one real bed being occupied by the 2 pairs of invalid grandparents, Charlie having a Latin-esque sleeping arrangements, and sadly, Mrs. Bucket works tirelessly around the clock to put cabbage water on the table for her family night after night, and Mr. Bucket doesn't even appear to exist in this film. Number 2. Willy Wonka is a sociopathic serial killer. Seriously, Charlie and Grandpa Joe are the only 2 shown to make it out of the factory alive. As each child received their comeuppance, Wonka just sits there and either idly stands by or offers them unsentimental warnings.
Stop, don't come back.
Augustus basically drowns in chocolate while stuck in the tube. Even if he didn't, his body wouldn't have survived the immense pressure of the tube, the almost certainly narrower tubes later, or the boiler in the fudge room. Violet couldn't have survived the rapid expansion into a giant blueberry, or the juicing room. The human body cannot tolerate rapid changes in internal pressure. Divers who surface too quickly, without adjusting to the changing pressures, undergo a condition referred to as the bends, which can be fatal. If Violet did survive her expansion, she was taken to the juicing room to be juiced. How does one normally juice something? Well, it's either crushed or cut until it's yielded enough liquid. Veruca and her father both take a straight drop down the garbage chute, which leads directly to the implicitly on furnace. If the furnace didn't kill them, the fall alone would have caused considerable damage. Mike TV was shrunk after being transmitted via Wonka vision, which Wonka practically encouraged him to do. Mike was then sent to be pulled by the taffy puller. As you can guess, being stretched out to that degree would kill a person. The Oompa Loompa who comes to escort Mike to the taffy puller whispers something into Wonka's ear. Based on his response of,
No, I won't hold you responsible.
we can guess that the Oompa Loompa said, am I going to be responsible if this kid dies? Seriously, who but a serial killer would put a floating soda directly underneath an inescapable and unguarded spinning death fan? You may be thinking, why would he kill his contest winners? Well, to be honest, 5 lifetime supplies of chocolate is probably pretty pricey. Not to mention, the idea of him giving a tour is probably not the best plan overall. I mean, seriously, his factory breaks nearly every single health code law in the books. Heck, he's not even the best tour guide. There's nothing quite like an acid trip mid-tour instigated by Wonka as he delights in their horror. No, seriously, I'm sure he had the best intentions in mind, like these kids really need to see how fried chicken is made. Or I'm sure this comforting light show will ease their minds of Augustus's tragic death. Look at this face. Isn't this the face of comfort and sanity? Actually, this is why I love Gene Wilder. At any given moment, he looks like he could just snap and kill everyone. Moving on. Upon the demise of each of the children, the Oompa Loompas are instantly singing a well-rehearsed song stating why that person deserved to die. Wonka has clearly demonstrated that he knew who would receive each of his golden tickets, what their weaknesses were, and how they would die. The biggest clue to this is that each mode of transportation that the tour utilizes is specifically designed to carry the specific number of people that are on that tour at that exact moment. If that doesn't indicate a thoroughly planned killing spree, then I don't know what does. The big twist ending of the movie is that David Letterman, Slugworth, in fact works for Wonka as an agent to test each of the 5 golden ticket winners. So if you remember, Wonka shut down his factory 15 years ago, which sent the local economy into the toilet. Remember Dirt Poor Charlie? Wonka then created a story of espionage with Slugworth as the villain in order to set this up. A fake man and a fake company. He screwed a lot of people over just to find an heir like 10 to 15 years later. I applaud your efforts, sir, but let's take a look at your plan. Let's leave my extremely dangerous, complicated, and successful factory in the hands of a barely educated 10-year-old boy. It'll be fine. Number 3. Grandpa Joe is one of the worst people on Earth. I kid you not, Grandpa Joe is one of the most selfish characters I have ever seen. With the Buckets living in the type of squalor that makes the orphans at David Copperfield look like they've got it easy, we unceremoniously find out that the little money that Miss Bucket and Charlie bring in goes to support Grandpa Joe's smoking habit. This is clearly not an isolated incident, so essentially we have the patriarch of the family enjoying a regular smoke while his family suffers from near starvation. Heck, the one time he doesn't spend the money on the tobacco, which I have no clue as to how, considering he's been bedridden for 20 years, he spends the money on a candy bar. A candy bar? Really? When bread is a delicacy, I think your spending priorities should lie elsewhere. Charlie wins the prize of a lifetime? Don't worry, Charlie, I, the freeloading invalid grandfather, will go with you to this amazing, fun, and food-filled event while we leave your widowed mother to hand-wash load after load of laundry. Screw her. Joe constantly frames the search for and experience of the Golden Ticket Tour in a self-centered light. He says things like,
I want to see that gold. Look at me. Look at me. A bit of good luck for me.
And even sings a song about his good fortune.
I never had a chance to shine, never a happy song to sing, but suddenly half the world is mine. What an amazing thing, 'cause I've got a golden ticket.
That's his song, not Charlie's. He only focuses on himself instead of supporting Charlie. Heck, he's the only parental guardian who encourages their kid to sign Wonka's contract without reading it or even considering the consequences first. He only wants what's coming to him. Mr. Wonka's giving you the chance of a lifetime? We've seen people who break the rules meet gruesome ends? I know. Let's break the rules and drink a soda. You won't make me rich, Mr. Wonka? Here, let me betray you to Slugworth. Oh, he's not real? Love you. Or how about my personal favorite? I haven't walked in 20 years, but aside from a stumble or two, my limbs have surprisingly not succumbed to atrophy. Screw him. Number 4. In a type of move that would eventually define the 90s, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was made with the expressed purpose of selling candy, because a commercial just wasn't good enough. Seriously though, in 1970, producer David Wolper convinced the Quaker Oats Company to buy the rights to the book and financially produce the movie in order to promote their upcoming Wonka bar. When you consider this, it puts the visuals of the movie in a clearer sense. Food porn. As much as I hate to admit it, every time I watch this movie I end up wanting chocolate. Diabolical marketers. Still though, I've never really had any of the Wonka brand candy, so maybe it's not that effective. On a final note, there was one thing that has always bothered me about this movie. While the entire world's searching for the final golden ticket, a street rat finds it, and while engulfed in a mob, no one takes it from his outstretched hand. He practically disappears inside that crowd, and yet no one steals it? At this point in the movie, it's been established that people willing to get a golden ticket will spend ludicrous amounts of money, kidnap husbands whose wives have boxes of Wonka bars, and even a Paraguayan millionaire will try and forge one. They are all that desperate to get their hands on a golden ticket, but not a single one of them will beat up a little kid. If there was a real-life version of Willy Wonka, Charlie would have met with the hard side of someone's knee, elbow, or lead pipe faster than someone would have called Child Protective Services on the buckets. Worst of all, I secretly root for that to happen every time. Well, that's all the time we have. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and catch us next time when we take a closer look at Star Trek Into Darkness. Trust me, you're gonna hate this.
Stop, don't.